Hello everybody, it's vanburman here. Welcome back to another video, and I'm surprised I've been called into action to give my thoughts. Calling myself into action. By the way, I own a lot of these orange t-shirts, just so you're aware, in case anyone's wondering, because I had a few uploads in a few days with the same t-shirt. Same style, cut and colour of t-shirt. They were just cheap, all right? Gosh, leave me alone. Oh, what a great way to start a video. So I want to talk today about the PlayStation's announcement that they're going to stop selling physical copies of games, what that might mean, how we've been led down this path, and sort of also why we're already there anyway. This is more just a formalization. Yeah, it's a tricky one, but we'll get into it. And obviously, there's something I'm going to talk about. There are exceptions to it, and mainly talking about my own experience as well. And yeah, so take things with a bit of nuance. One thing I want to say off the bat is this is more evidence of a general reduction in quality that we see from just lots of things, from films, TV, not necessarily music per se. Indie scenes are quite strong and quite alive in my experience. But anyway, video games for a lot of the part. At least my perception of it is that way. And yeah, now I guess the inevitability of all consoles effectively becoming, and they already are, but effectively we're just becoming PCs and gateways for exclusivities, I suppose, to get onto the platform. So I don't really know where I particularly start. So I guess I'll talk about my own experience in this for a start. Sorry. So I've sort of co-owned PCs and consoles for a good number of years now. I would say probably I was on PC first and had an Atari ST. Then I went to the PlayStation 1 and didn't have the PC. And then PlayStation 2, PlayStation 3, then back to PC. And then PC... Oh, sorry, there was Xbox 360 before the PS3. And then back to and then to PC, which is kind of where I finally ended up landing. I also had a PlayStation 3, I had a PlayStation 4, and PlayStation 5. I owned an Xbox One. Currently have a 360 as well, and a backwards compatible PS3 for PS2 games. Which I suppose is me trying to tell you that I'm a big fan of physical media and having the disc and all that entails, and being able to just put the game in and it just run. Which is actually quite refreshing on some of the older consoles. But when I moved over to PC and, the sort of hardware side of things and learning and building your own computer and that sort of stuff was really appealing at the time. I also was aware that, due to the prevalence of Steam in particular, that, while when I moved back, I had like sort of a 50-50 library. I had half my PC games on disc and then half of them on the Steam library. And the trade-off was always pretty evident. So PC games in general were cheaper. But then with the rise of CD key sites and that kind of thing, the PC games were really, really good value. And I'm talking like AAA release, you would pay just over £20 for them. Obviously, they're now 60, and even on the key sites now, they're around £50. So things have definitely changed. The incentive has, for me, was there as in terms of it's a big, the trade-off is monetary. Right? I lose the ability to have a disc that I can put in, and I guess that's the other thing about PCs. PCs were always installed off the game disc, and then the game disc was the activation, whereas in consoles all the data was on the disc. So yeah, we kind of have had a shift in the hardware, not for the worse, I will say, but it has changed the landscape in which this world operates. So yeah, and I've seen, it's obvious, there's been a massive price increase for PC games as time has gone on. It's no longer its small niche market that it was, where cheaper prices were the trade-off for having potentially more expensive hardware than consoles. They're still more expensive hardware than consoles, but they're now, I don't think there's really any Someone might be able to give me a stat that showed me that I'm wrong. There's really any difference in prices. Now, maybe there's compare maybe Steam sales are more deeper discounted than when PlayStation and Xbox have their sales, but I don't know that is the case. It doesn't feel like it is that way, even though. And Steam sales back in the day were far better than they are now. Far more better. Bad English, but there you have it. It was the trade off, and one that I was willing to make. And over time, I've not had a choice anyway. It is the way it is. Prices have gone up. I haven't had the ability to say, well, I'm going to go back to discs now, other than buying a PlayStation with a disc drive and that kind of thing. But, from PlayStation, I'm not sure if it's the same on PlayStation 3, but PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, the increase in the amount of games that literally don't hold all of the game data on it anyway, means that those games they're not physical. You may have a piece of plastic disc, I'm not sure what the materials it's made of actually, presumably some sort of metal alloy, and then, or whatever whatever, that goes into your console and can run the game fully off of it. It's less and less as time has gone on, and to the point where the many games just won't run without there having an internet connection anyway. I think it's fine. In my opinion, it's fine if it's got like an install disc and then a game disc. That kind of it's quite nostalgic. It takes us back to the old school PC games, of which I've got loads down here because I started collecting some of the old disc games. I've got like a USB disc drive. Haven't played any of them as of yet, but things may change in the future as it becomes more rarer. And then obviously the phenomenon of disc rot, which I haven't experienced yet, but is quite scary, exists. So yeah, and then it eradicates all of the potential trading value you have for your games as well, because there is no way of doing a trading value. I think that there is something in the EU were doing something when they about being able to trade in digital games, but anyway, by the by, it's not a readily available thing. Wouldn't actually be able to sell it to someone on the street, and all that kind of stuff if you wanted to, which has always been a big advantage. And this is probably, if anything, is really big win for Nintendo with their cartridges, which is a strange thing to say, but there you go. It is. And I guess whether Nintendo, with, taking on really big titles onto the Switch, whether they will have to do a similar thing where actually the game is not on the fully on the cartridge. I don't know if that actually happens already, but if it does, then we know which way that's going anyway. And then, we've had the very recent example as well, once again with Sony. Sony doing a good job at the minute, about all of their Canal Plus stuff that people have bought, films and that kind of stuff. I'm not sure how big that library was or is, but the fact that they're then removing it from people's accounts, even though you've paid for it. I mean, generally the rule has been when stuff like that, as like licenses have expired or whatever, that you get the like what happened with the PSP, I think, when they took down the PSN store for it. You could download all of your stuff and then that was it, kind of thing. But you got the warning and you could still watch and play it from your device. Whereas this is very different. This is very much you've lost it, which stings a lot. And it is, well, many people have been shouting about it for a very long time, and unfortunately they have been proven right. The world has a funny way of proving ridiculous claims to be correct. This is another one of them. Purely sticking to gaming examples, of course. So what do I think is for the future? Well, I mean, ultimately, PC players have been in it for a long while, and console players will now allow it, and a lot of people are actually, if you talk to them, they're actually happier with it. The fact that they can preload their game ahead of launch and then play it on launch without having to go to a shop and buying it. But inevitably it will kill the big retail stores, so things like GameStop, things like Game, unless they fully diversify into that retro gaming sphere. I kind of more see that, I don't see that going anywhere. Probably might even have a bit of a boom, to be honest. But, that will probably and hopefully be more independents doing that work, which would be great actually. Maybe not for some people, but overall I think it would be better. And yeah, people will, I mean, Sony making this announcement is interesting because it comes very shortly after the I don't like talking about GTA 6. It's not something I'm going to buy or play or really care about, but it is pertinent when it comes to this particular topic that people are going to quite happily buy that without the game disc to very little objection. But then later on will complain about the fact that they then don't have discs. That is gamers for you, unfortunately. So, fickle bunch. Myself included in that, by the way. So, what can you do? So, there isn't really an obvious straight answer to this. And not one that I can recommend either. So, if we're talking hypothetically, which we are now, hypothetically, if you were on PC and there was a way that you could get, I mean, let's make it more fair. Let's say it's games you already own, but you could get them without their DRM restriction, which would enable you to play it off of a hard drive without an internet connection. That might be a way in which you could safeguard backing up of your games. Maybe you might do that on a game-by-game basis onto its own USB stick and run it off there. Probably not the best idea. Or, some sort of fancy, USB 3.1, 3.2, 10 gigabits per second external drive that you could then use wherever. And as a lot of these now don't even need to be installed onto your C drive, I mean, there might be some distributable packages and things that need to be in place for the game to run. Ultimately, you could play it on anything. I'm not advocating this, but I am saying it is a way in which you can take action to safeguard your own game library if you have something that you are particularly worried about being taken down and stripped from you. Or you could just do it after the fact because those things will still be there. And while there is a lot of crackdown on the online world, I don't think that side of things is at the top of the agenda for now. So that's an avenue. It's going to get patched, as they say. But that's where we are with it. And that's it. I mean, other than that, you're screwed. If physical media is something that is important to you, hold on to it while you can. I mean, I think, in my research, in my own personal tastes, the quality of games has dipped dramatically in the last decade. So that may well continue to be prevalent. Although I would say independent game studios' quality has increased. But big budget stuff has generally decreased, in my opinion. So, there might be other ways of obtaining, safeguarding that particular data. But if you're on console, you are tied into an ecosystem that doesn't really have a workaround. And actually, I think when you look back on it with a PC lens, the increased prevalence of things like Linux distributions, which I do see increasing because of Steam's good work, which, Steam ultimately are not your friends, but they have done a lot of good work in this space that will enable more people to have a more open access, I suppose. It's not just tied to Windows. There are other ways in. There's more accessible. It's better for your hardware. But once you can get into that infrastructure, you can then do those things that I've mentioned in terms of safeguarding your data and making sure that your stuff is playable without a internet connection that you've paid for. So, in the same way that backing up your PlayStation, any of your console games onto your PC and then running them through an emulator where you own those games and own those consoles to get around this potential disk swap. But ultimately, you then need a lot of storage space. Storage is really expensive at the minute. So pick your poison. But it's not a case of pick your poison. It's pick what you want to safeguard. And if your game is perpetually online or you enjoy the online facilities of such a game, you probably have to accept that you are, you do. You have to accept that that game is available for as long as the developer is willing to keep those servers online. Some exceptions. Some communities have done some incredible work in having fan fan-made servers, keeping old defunct games still running online, like the fact that you can still play Battle for Middle-earth, is it incredible, really. One of those games that's worth owning on disc as well, by the way. But yeah, I digress. I am digressing. Let me know what you think in the comments. Maybe it's not a big deal to you. Maybe it is. It's definitely the end of an era, though. I know that Xbox were the first ones that wanted to do this, and Sony was seen as the bastion of keeping that alive. And now that they're going down this path, is it? I don't necessarily know if Nintendo will. They can keep it as a USP, but yeah, the Switch idea is a bit different, isn't it? I think you're not. What can I say? For any game that's on multiple platforms, you do not get the best experience on Switch. I mean, if it's a game that is only on Switch, then by default, it is the best experience of that particular game. Oh, no, wait, there's PC emulators. Anyway, now I'm digressing. But thank you very much for watching. Hopefully I see you all very soon. And yeah, like, stay safe. Bye for now.